Lan Zhan, nothing wrong to admit kissing me at night without me knowing. Why are you still shy, Lan Zhan? Wait. Wei Wuxian hurriedly bid farewell to the children on the side of the road. Lan Wangji heard his voice and slowed down a bit. Wei Wuxian took a long stride before catching up with the person in white. Wei Wuxian felt very happy when he saw that Lan Wangji didn't speak, but his earlobes were dyed a little bright red. Lan Zhan, why are you ignoring me? Lan Wangji pursed his lips and walked steadily. Han Wangjun? Lan Wangji didn't look sideways. Second brother Lan? Lan Wangji's look trembled slightly. Husband? Lan Wangji grabbed Wei Wuxian's hand suddenly, held him firmly beside him, and said in a hoarse voice, "Stop it." Wei Wuxian grinned, retorted his palm, and pretended to say sadly, "Han Wangjun, how could a gentleman steal a kiss at night and not admit it afterwards?" Just now on the street, they met a few children staring at the candied Ha's shop. Wei Wuxian was very generous to treat the children, but Han Wangjun paid the bill. They were so happy, eating the sugar-coated Ha's and surrounded Wei Wuxian. One child started to talk. "My mom." A child was embarrassed but eager to share the secret of friendship with his new friend, so he lowered his head and tugged at the corner of his clothes, muttering, "My mom said I wet the bed." The corners of Wei Wuxian's mouth twitched down, pretending to make a disgusting expression, pinching his tender white face, and saying, "How old are you to still wet the bed? Shame on you." The child was stunned for a moment. The sugar-candied Ha's in his hands were not firmly grasped, and fell down and rolled on the ground. He glanced at Wei Wuxian, and then at the Ha's covered with a thick layer of ash, and burst into tears. Wei Wuxian laughed. Lan Wangji sighed, bought another Ha, and squatted down in front of the child. The child's eyelashes were still dripping with tears, and his eyes were bright, like spring water, staring at this person who seemed to have a cold face without blinking. Lan Wangji put the Ha into the child's hand, held the very small hand, pointed at Wei Wuxian with the candy gourd, and said calmly, "This big brother still kicks the quilt at night." Wei Wuxian was speechless. The child frowned tightly as if thinking that although kicking the quilt was not as humiliating as bedwetting, this person was much older than him, and it was humiliating enough. So he wiped his eyes, licked the new candied Ha's, and became happy again. Wei Wuxian raised his brows and said, "Han Wangjun, I didn't know that you are so good at coaxing children." Then he leaned in and asked sincerely, "Lan Zhan, did I really kick the quilt?" "Yeah." "Then." Wei Wuxian rolled his eyes and said, "Will you kiss me when you tuck the quilt for me?" Han Wangjun's eyes narrowed, he waved his sleeves and walked away. Lan Wangji neither denied nor admitted it. Wei Wuxian suddenly got excited, and really wanted to figure it out. He had to catch Lan Wangji when he tried to kiss him. So he poured himself a cup of strong tea before going to bed. The summer night is quiet and there's a cool breeze. The branches and leaves move slightly, the cicadas chirp around the ears, the moonlight is like bright threads, interwoven into a soft net, and no one knows whose heart is caught. Late at night, Wei Wuxian gradually heard the sound of Lan Wangji's sleeping breathing. He often listened to Lan Wangji's urgent and ferocious breath and affairs, the long sigh every time he made when he was speechless by Wei Wuxian's words, and the chuckle that was like a clear light reflecting snow. But after the nightly affair, Wei Wuxian was always the first to fall asleep. When he was lightly awakened by Lan Wangji in the early morning, the sky was already full of light. Only then did he realize that he hadn't listened to Lan Wangji's sleeping breathing so quietly for a long time. Lan Wangji's breathing sounded like ocean waves, only one layer was surging up, and the back was the more silent vast ocean. Just like Lan Wangji. Wei Wuxian listened with bated breath. For a moment he forgot why he drank strong tea and why didn't he sleep in the middle of the night. Cicada suddenly changed its tone. Wei Wuxian suddenly became nervous, pursed his lips, closed his eyes tightly, and he heard the rustling of the people around him as if he was awake. Lan Wangji did wake up. Last winter was extremely cold, and Wei Wuxian's body was too weak. One night he kicked the quilt and caught a cold. Wei Wuxian didn't think it was a big deal, so he still did everything as usual after he recovered, laughed more than anyone else, and even forgot what caused the cold. Lan Wangji was worried. Since then, he often woke up at night. Wei Wuxian felt Lan Wangji prop up slightly, leaned over, and helped him tuck the quilt carefully and gently. Then it was quiet for a while as if he was not moving. Wei Wuxian was sure almost immediately. A burning gaze fell on his face. Lan Wangji supported himself with one arm and the other hand stroked Wei Wuxian's face, breathing closer and closer, and finally dropped a kiss on his forehead. Gentle like a petal brushing Wei Wuxian's face. Wei Wuxian's whole body seemed to be nailed. He clearly should have opened his eyes at this time, rushed over with a smile, and caught Lan Wangji, but why can't he move? Such a restrained kiss, but he felt that there was an infinite tenderness hidden in the darkness that was suppressed. The breathing of the people next to him became stable again. Wei Wuxian started to think angrily, only allow Lan Zhan kissing me but I'm not allowed to kiss him? So he quietly opened his eyes, turned his head sideways, and saw that Lan Wangji seemed to be asleep. He carefully propped up and looked at Lan Zhan's handsome brows and eyes. Then Wei Wuxian felt surprised that it had been a couple of years since the big wedding. He still felt butterflies in his stomach when he just looked at Lan Zhan. Like a teenage girl seeing her first lover. Wei Wuxian can't help but kissed Lan Wangji's lips. He intended to take it with a single touch, but the moment he touched it, the eyes of the man below him opened, and Lan Wangji suddenly pulled him and rolled, and then they switched positions. Lan Zhan, Lan Zhan. Lan Wangji controlled Wei Wuxian's hands above his head and looked at him. Wei Wuxian met those light-colored eyes, and saw that the bottom of his eyes was very clear. Only then did he realize that he had been tricked, and suddenly said in a bad mood, Lan Zhan, you actually pretended to be asleep. Lan Wangji pressed down and tried to kiss Wei Wuxian, but Wei Wuxian turned his head to avoid him, but was turned back with his chin pinched. Lan Wangji looked at him deeply, and said softly, you too. How do you know I'm pretending to sleep? You didn't kick the quilt. Oh right, I forgot. You didn't even call my name in your dream. Wei Wuxian opened his eyes slightly wider. Lan Wangji stretched out his arms and hugged him. Nor tried to sleep in my arms.